Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Thursday Night Hockey Show Trade Deadline Edition. We are almost there. Less than 24 hours from today, we will see the end of the trade deadline. We'll get to finally focus on the run to the playoffs. So it's a very exciting time. It's been a very, very busy week. Reminder tomorrow on TikTok Live. Thanks to all you watching on TikTok. We're going to be doing a trade deadline live stream from noon Eastern until 4 o'clock when the last few trades kind of trickle in after that 3 p.m. Eastern deadline. So please feel free to join us tomorrow as we talk about those trades as they roll in. We'll talk about the NHL, what the playoff races look like now that the trade deadline is getting closer to being finish, we get an idea of what these teams are going to look like as we go into the last month of the season. So, anyway, so exciting. Let's take a look at the games that are going to go on tonight. So, full slate of games tonight ahead of the trade deadline. Not everybody who's been traded in the last 24 hours is probably going to be playing for their new teams, but we do have some significant debuts happening tonight. So, tonight, all these are Eastern. So at 7 o'clock, Buffalo is in Boston to take on the Bruins. It's a fortress in Boston. It's a hard place to play. Boston's only gotten a lot better since the last time Buffalo and Boston have played. But Buffalo has been extremely good on the road. So we'll see which team shows up for Buffalo and what happens on the ice with Boston. A lot of acquisitions for the Bruins over the last 2 weeks, and we'll see how the chemistry builds. I mean, they're still playing really well after going on a long Western road trip. So Nashville is in Florida to take on the Panthers. Panthers fighting for their playoff lives. They're currently in a decent points position, but the number of games played for the Panthers is the concern for them moving forward. Big game of the night. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on the Ottawa game, Ottawa versus New York Rangers. So the tonight is the debut of Patrick Kane as a New York Ranger. We'll talk about that trade in a moment. But yeah, that's kind of a lot of where a lot of people are focusing on to see how well Patrick Kane does during his first game as a New York Ranger. Pittsburgh is in Tampa to take on the Lightning. Seattle is in Detroit. This is an interesting matchup because Detroit, I think, found out a lot about itself this week. They'd been on a really good run and fell off a little bit in 2 games against Ottawa. I think this week really changed the fortunes of two teams. Detroit went from a team that was competing for a playoff spot to while signing a significant player, dealing off a couple pieces, and then Ottawa moved from a team that was looking kind of towards next year to a team that got into the mix of the trades. We'll get into that one as well. Tonight at 8:30 p.m., Dallas is in Chicago to take on the Blackhawks. Blackhawks have had significant changes. Dallas has added a few pieces here and there, but not been fairly quiet for a team that's leading its division. So Toronto is in Calgary. The Leafs have added a ton over the last 2 weeks. Calgary's stayed pretty silent on the trade front, so we'll see if Calgary can change its fortunes and get into the playoffs. Let's see, Minnesota and Vancouver. Minnesota is a team that's fighting on that playoff bubble right now with Calgary. So this is 2 points they need. Vancouver has been making changes, maybe not as many as people would have thought. They've added some pieces. They've dealt off, of course, they've dealt off some top flight talent, Bo Horvat, but there's still some stuff that they may trade off before tomorrow's 3 p.m. deadline. That's a team to watch. Montreal is in Los Angeles at 10:30 p.m. and the final game of the night, well, with the Montreal Los Angeles game, is the St. Louis versus San Jose game. Not really any playoff implications there. LA, the Montreal versus LA game. That's a tale of two teams. Montreal, disappointing season. Have made some moves, but I think there's some more moves that Montreal can make versus LA, who's been adding players. So let's get into the trades because I think that this week has been all trades. I saw a stat earlier online that said that about 41 trades have been made in the last 2 weeks. a full 36 of them in the last week alone. So since our last show, we've had about 36 trades, so 3 dozen trades to talk about. And these are, for the most part, fairly significant pieces that have been moving around. So, and then there's been some cap stuff that's happened, but we'll get into that. So, let's talk about. We're going to go in reverse chronological order. So, the most recent trades that we've had today. Um, Edmonton has acquired Nick Bugstad from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a young defenseman, Michael Kesselring, and a third round pick. So, again, Arizona is acquiring picks, and this is a 2023 pick. So I think they're up to like 8 or 9 picks in the first 3 rounds of this next draft. So again, um, I don't know that Arizona will need to leave the stage at the draft because they're going to be up there so frequently. They just kind of move them off to the side while their teams pick, I think. Um, Next trade is and it's a decent pickup for the Edmonton Oilers. Get another bottom six forward for the team. Um, you know, it's kind of a wash, I think. Arizona wants its picks. Edmonton got its middle six forward or third line forward. I'm going to say that's kind of a win-win trade right there. Today, Chicago dealt for Anders Bjork from the Buffalo Sabres for future considerations. What those future considerations are, we don't know. The future will tell us. Um, so yeah, Anders Bjork is moved on to Chicago. Bjork had been playing in with the Rochester Americans in the AHL ever since I think he was demoted in early December. And Kevin Adams made a promise to move Bjork at the deadline to another team where he could get some NHL playing time. Um, I don't know about doing it the day before the trade deadline. You probably could have focused on that a little bit earlier. But Bjork is now a Chicago Blackhawk, and Sabres are going. Who knows what the Sabres get out of this? They may not even get anything out of it. Let's see. The Vegas Golden Knights have acquired goaltender Jonathan Quick, and since we're going in reverse chronological order, you're going to hear Jonathan Quick's name a couple times from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for another goaltender, Michael Hutchinson, I think was playing in their AHL affiliate, and a 7th round pick in the 2025 draft. Um, that's not a lot of return. I mean, Hutchinson has had a couple cups of coffee at the NHL level. I don't think that he's going to be threatening to take any time away from any of the goaltenders in Columbus. Uh, I think it's just they wanted to get something back for Jonathan Quick. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's a win in that Columbus made the odd trade to get Jonathan Quick, and it is they get something back for him. Vegas gets a goaltender, although Quick had been booted out of the crease in LA, so that'll be an interesting dynamic as the Pacific Division rolls down towards the end of the years. Can Quick regain the form that helped lead LA to 3 Stanley Cups and has backstopped the team for the last decade and a half. So um, it's that one's an interesting trade, and that'll have an interesting dynamic as the season goes through. Arizona again dealing. They acquired Jacob Voracek. Now this is a pure salary cap move. So they traded with the Columbus Blue Jackets. No, Jacob Voracek is not going to be playing for the Arizona Coyotes. He was knocked out earlier this year with concussion symptoms, and he's actually said that he's may not play again. So this is a move. Jacob Voracek's like an $8.5 million player, and it's a move to help Arizona stay above the salary cap line. They can deal off a couple more veterans and stay above that 61 million ish salary cap floor that they have to maintain. Um, let's see, Boston. They've been busy, and they got another good forward. The only there's a knock on this guy, but this is going to help. This is going to help them, I think. Another sandpaper guy in their lineup, tough forward to play against. But Boston acquired Tyler Bertuzzi from the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for a conditional first round pick in the 2024 draft. I think it's top 10 protected, which I don't foresee Boston falling off that bad next season. Um, they also get a fourth round pick in the 25 NHL draft. We're seeing a lot of like later year picks being moved. And so, yeah, 24 and 25 picks. And that goes to Detroit while Boston gets Tyler Bertuzzi. The only knock on Bertuzzi is he is often injured. So I don't know what is going to be good for Tyler Bertuzzi. Whether I think he plays too heavy of a game for his frame. He, like I said, he's a pain in the ass to play, but he's a good player. But I think that style of play that he has really impacts him and is the reason why he's so often injured. Let's see. That was the last of the trades that have gone on today. Last night we had trades. Pittsburgh acquiring a forward, Michael Granlund from the Nashville Predators, in exchange for a second round pick in this draft. Um, I know a lot of Pittsburgh Penguin fans, and they're not real fans of this trade. Granlund's best years are, I think, behind him, and doesn't. I mean, he's a kind of a middle six to bottom six forward. Um, doesn't really help them in the top two lines. Doesn't really address any of the needs. Pittsburgh still needs a goaltender that they can trust. Jari's been injured too much this season, so um, a lot of people are kind of calling for the head of the GM Ron Hextall. Um, but we'll see. Will Pittsburgh make the playoffs? They're kind of on that cusp right now. Um, Now, I think Pittsburgh makes some deals tomorrow. Whether they get their goalie, whether they get anything else to help that team is going to be a question mark. So, San Jose Sharks acquired Vladislav Nemesnikov from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for forward Michael Eisemont. Um, that's an interesting trade. Sure, that's to clear cap space for further acquisitions for the San Jose Sharks as they are really up against it with the salary cap. So if they find something else out there, I just don't know that the Tampa Bay Lightning have any capital to player right now. They dealt a load of picks in a trade we'll see here in a few minutes. Um, yeah, I just don't see where they can go as far as trading. Uh, Tampa probably could just not show up to the draft. I don't know that they've got any draft picks at this point. So let's see. The Vegas Golden Knights acquired Teddy Bluger from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for defenseman Peter Delapattore and a third round pick in the 2024 draft. Now, that's an interesting move. It corresponds with that Granlund move, but why get rid of Bluger and bring in Granlund? I don't know. That's a significant upgrade. Um, but Vegas Golden Knights get a pretty decent bottom six forward. Uh, the Knights have a great top forward team. Golden Knights have a great top two lines forward team. But the bottom six kind of is an afterthought there. And for them to make that significant run, I know that they want to make. They're going to need some help on that back end, and I know that they've done a flurry of trades this last few days. So let's see. Los Angeles acquired the unsigned draft rights to goaltender Eric Portillo from the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for a third round pick. Yay, Buffalo made a trade. Uh, Nothing. I mean, outside of the Anders Bjork trade for nothing. Um, this is an interesting one because Portillo. There's been rumors that Portillo doesn't want to sign with Buffalo, so Buffalo was smart to trade him. They got essentially what they used to pick him up, a third round pick. All they've lost is time when it comes to this deal. Now it becomes does Los Angeles have the ability to sign him now? I think it'll be easier for the LA Kings to sign him. Um, but I think Portillo saw the writing on the wall when it came to goaltending like UPL and Devin Levi in at Northeastern. I think he knew that the Sabres were really going to go heavily towards Levi and make that decision. So um, yeah, I'm not displeased by that deal. I do hate that we had a problem getting Portillo, but I think of the goalie prospects, um, Levi is much better than Portillo. So as long as the Sabres sign Levi at the end of the college season this year from Northeastern, um, all will be good. I don't want Levi going back to his senior year and not signed, because then I get worried that he's going to bolt as a free agent. Uh, let's see, March 1st, Ottawa Senators. This is one of the biggest trades of the trade deadline season. One of the big pieces. They acquired defenseman Jacob Chikrin from the Arizona Coyotes. Um, was an interesting trade because there have been so many rumors about what Arizona was asking for from teams in exchange for Jacob Chikrin. And I know that different teams had different valuations for him, but I think Ottawa got him for a pretty decent song. So they got him in exchange for a first round draft pick this year, a second draft pick next year, and a second round draft pick in the 2026 NHL draft. Again, there's one of those deep future draft picks. I think you can only trade out 3 years for draft picks, but yeah, there's that's an interesting return for Chikrin. I think Arizona was expecting a lot more, but a lot of teams that they were working with balked at the idea of dealing off so many assets. There's rumors that they wanted like a couple first round picks or a first round pick, a roster player, decent roster player, and prospect, a top prospect, and to get a first round pick, which Ottawa may or may not make the playoffs. They're right there on the cusp. Um, so they may get a top, maybe not a lottery pick, but at least a lottery pick in the sense that it's in the top 16. But I don't think it's not going to win the lottery and give them Connor Bedard. So, um, but yeah, Arizona again acquiring picks, another first round pick for this draft. Um, a second round for the next draft. Again, they're going to have a ton of picks for the next three drafts. It's kind of strange to see them acquire so many picks because eventually they're going to have to make those picks, and eventually those players are going to have to start hitting the system. So, how do they deal with that many prospects at the same time? Let's see, Vancouver. They acquired defenseman Philip Hronik from the Detroit Red Wings, and as well as a fourth round pick in the 2023 draft in exchange for a conditional first round draft pick in the 2023 draft, and a second round pick in the 2023 draft. I'm assuming that the conditional pick is top 10 or lottery protected, um, and then would slide to next year's draft. But yeah, that was an interesting sign. I think Steve Eiserman realized when they got wrecked by the Ottawa Senators this week that perhaps even with the good run that they've had over the last month, they're not quite ready for prime time. So um, get your house in order, stack some picks, and then move forward to make next year your year that you take the step forward to go to the playoffs. Let's see. So we talked about Jonathan Quick going to Las Vegas. Here's the first part of the story. Columbus Blue Jackets had acquired. This is on March 1st. Columbus Blue Jackets acquired goaltender Jonathan Quick, a conditional first round pick in the 2023 draft. I think that was probably top 10 protected, and a third round pick in the top 2024 draft from LA in exchange for defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov and goalie Jonas Corposalo. Interesting trade because I didn't think Corposalo was out on the market, but he was acquired, which helps LA address a little bit of the goaltending issues. I don't know that Corposalo is the top flight netminder that they need to solidify things in LA, but we'll see. Um, but at least he can be a decent backup now that they've gotten rid of Jonathan Quick. Um, and now it's the Phoenix Copley show in LA full time. And then, of course, we talk about how Quick gets moved to the Vegas Golden Knights. Um, so essentially, um, the trade ends up being Michael Hutchinson, a seventh round pick, and a couple first round pick and a third round pick in the NHL draft for Gavrikov and Jonas Corpusalo. So not a bad return for Columbus on that deal. They got something for quick. They got a first round pick and a third round pick. Not bad. The conditional, I think, is kind of ridiculous. They did say a top 10 conditional. I don't think LA misses the playoffs, so there's no real chance that their first round pick is not going to go over to Columbus. Let's see the Rangers. This was the biggest trade of the trade deadline so far. I don't think this is going to get topped, but the Rangers acquired for Patrick Kane and defenseman Cooper Zek from the Chicago Blackhawks in a three-team trade that also included the Arizona Coyotes. The Blackhawks received defenseman Andy Walensky, a conditional second-round pick in the 23 draft, and a fourth-round pick in the 25 NHL draft from the Rangers, and defenseman Vili Sarayarvi from the Coyotes. Coyotes acquired a third round pick. Look at those Coyotes in exchange for taking some of the cap hit from Patrick Kane. So for a brief moment in time, Patrick Kane was an Arizona Coyote. But yeah, like I said, Patrick Kane is supposed to be making his debut here in the next 8 minutes. So check it out on TV tonight. Should be interesting to see how he fits in. I know he's real big friends with Artemi Panarin. Um, really, Kane put the Chicago Blackhawks over a barrel with this deal. I think they could have gotten twice as much. They probably could have got a couple big time draft picks or pick and a prospect out of another team, but Patrick Kane only wanted to go to the Rangers. So um, be careful signing those new movement clauses. Let's see. Minnesota Wilds acquired Gustav Nyquist from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for a fifth round pick in the 23 draft. Decent trade. Um, not much risk on Nyquist. Nyquist has got some speed, got some skill. Uh, does provide Minnesota some of that middle six help that they needed going into the rest of the season. I just don't know that that's enough compared to what's gone on. Um, Edmonton started to make some moves. They acquired Matthias Ekholm and a six-round pick from the Nashville Predators. Six-round pick is in the 24 draft in exchange for defenseman Tyson Berry, forward Reed Schaefer, a first-round pick in the 23 draft, and a fourth-round pick in the 24 draft. I will tell you, I really like that deal for Nashville in that they got a current defensive player, a prospect forward, Reed Schaefer, and that first round pick in this draft. Not even now. It looks like Edmonton is going to make the playoffs, so there's not really much worry about having to make that a protected pick or conditional pick. Um, so they're in Nashville. They're kind of clearing the decks for a full rebuild there, and we'll see what goes on with Nashville. Another trade from Nashville, acquiring Austin Rushoff from the New York Rangers in exchange for future considerations. Um, that was probably more of a cap clearing move or a contract clearing move for the Rangers than anything. Let's see. Toronto Maple Leafs acquiring Luke Shen from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a third round pick. So Toronto has been tremendously busy during this trade deadline. They've really revamped their roster. Not so much the top six, but that bottom six is completely different. Their defense is also much different than it was, say, 2 weeks ago. So Toronto's going for it. They don't want another first round exit. Right now, they are the cheap date of the NHL. One round and they're out. So, um, the New York Islanders, they acquired Pierre Engvall from Toronto in exchange for a third round pick. So, a third round was bottom six forwards gets moved out to the island um, for a third round pick. So not only is Toronto moving players out and bringing players in, but they're also getting draft capital, which is um, I've been a big critic of their general manager for several years now, Kyle Dubas. Um, but this draft, trade deadline has, um, I've reevaluated my opinion of him because he's done some really smart things, bringing in some really good players, addressing those needs that they have, but not selling the entire farm as some teams like Tampa does. The entire prospect cupboard is stripped bare. Um, and it's going for another cup. So we'll see if it works because we're going to see that in evidence at the end of the season, where first round is going to be Tampa versus Toronto. It just depends on who it finishes the rest of the season hot and who gets that home ice advantage for next season. Let's see, where are we? Another deal. Defenseman here for the Washington Capitals. They acquired defenseman Rasmus Sandin from the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for defenseman Eric Gustafson and a first round pick in the 2023 draft. It's another trade that Toronto, I think, wins on this one. Sandin's a good player, um, but you got a defenseman and a first round pick out of that as a team that's competing for a Stanley Cup to pick up a first round pick in this draft, non-conditional. That's a heck of a trade. Minnesota Wild acquired forward Marcus Johansson from the Washington Capitals. Washington's been very busy in kind of rebuilding their roster. Marcus Johansson goes to the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a third round pick in the 2024 draft. Marcus is a very good third or fourth line guy. His best years where he could probably slot into that second line on a part-time basis have probably passed him by, but allows Minnesota to bolster its bottom six. Um, third round pick is not a bad exchange there. San Jose Sharks acquired the rights to unsigned draft choice defenseman Harry Thrun from the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a third round pick. Much like the Buffalo trade with the LA Kings for Eric Portillo, unsigned draft choice. So the market's been kind of set at a third round pick for an unsigned draft choice because there is risk. A good player at the collegiate level doesn't always pan out at the pro level, but a guy like that may be very close to becoming a free agent at the end of the year. So there's a small window for Anaheim to make the deal to sign him up and get him in camp. So if not, Henry Thrun becomes a free agent and can sign with any team. And I've gone through. I mean, I've been talking about this for about a half hour now. All these trades that we've been going on. We're only to February 28th. So the earliest trade on February 28th was Carolina Hurricanes acquiring forward Jesse Puljujarvi from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for the rights to unsigned draft choice forward Patrick Puistola. Um, Puljujarvi has had flashes in Edmonton. This isn't a guy that's going to put Carolina over the top, but he doesn't need to be. Um, but he was a top first round draft pick for the Edmonton Oilers. One of those many that really didn't quite live up to expectations. Now they hit a home run, and you can't miss with Connor McDavid, but um, there are quite a few first round draft picks in the history of the Edmonton Oilers that just haven't panned out. And Puljujarvi's been largely been one of those. Like there's flashes, but he's never been consistent enough to put it together for a full season. All right. So we go to February 27th. My Buffalo Sabres made a trade. Woo! And it is Riley Stillman from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for forward Josh Bloom. On its face, I absolutely hate this trade. Um, Riley Stillman is a defenseman. Um, not a He does address a need in one way that he is kind of sandpaper guy. We'll throw the gloves down. I'm not opposed to that. There is, you know, connection there in that GM Kevin Adams played with Riley Stillman's father, Corey Stillman. Um, and I think they might be kind of from that area, from the Buffalo area. But um, you know, uh, losing a guy like Josh Bloom, who has been a really good prospect for the Sabres in the Canadian Hockey League, the Canadian Juniors, um, who's a point a game player in the Canadian Juniors. Maybe not the best move, but I think if you're uh, last time the Sabres made any noise in the playoffs, the year before they made the Eastern Conference Finals and just ran out of gas because all their defensemen were injured. I don't have a problem with acquiring more defensemen to have stockpiles of defensemen. Um, but I don't know. I'm just not really, pumped about that acquisition. Apparently, I don't know if he's in the lineup tonight for Buffalo in Boston, but if there's a team that I'd like to see him play against and see how well he does or does not do, it would be Boston because of his sandpaper and pugilistic abilities. Again, Toronto making moves, acquiring Jake McCabe from the and Sam Lafferty, and a conditional fifth round pick in the 2024 draft, and a conditional fifth round pick in the 2025 NHL draft from the Blackhawks in exchange for Joey Anderson, forward Pavel Gogolev, a conditional first round pick in the 2025 NHL draft. I probably top 10 protected. Second round pick in the 2026 NHL draft. So again, the teardown of the Blackhawks continues, and Jake McCabe moves to address some of the blue line issues that the Toronto Maple Leafs have had. So again, defense bottom six revamping of the Toronto Maple Leafs has been quite an interesting show to watch. Nashville acquires Isaac Ratcliffe from the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for future considerations. Seen a few of those trades. Um, Probably just guys that don't fit in the future of for the Flyers, and they want to give them the player a chance. They've maybe been a good foot soldier, and think maybe that they fit in a different organization better. So why not give them that chance? This was a big trade for Nashville. I think Nashville really made out like bandits on this one. The Tampa Bay Lightning acquired forward Tanner Jeannot from the Nashville Predators in exchange for defenseman Cal Foote, pretty decent young defenseman, a conditional first round pick in the 2025 NHL draft, a second round pick in the 2024 NHL draft, a third, fourth, and fifth round pick in the 2023 NHL draft. So they picked up like five picks. Uh, a young defenseman who's played at the NHL level for a while, in exchange for kind of a middle six forward. They're trying to recreate that third line magic they had when they won their back to back cups. Um, and Draft picks be damned. I mean, it's crazy to see how much. I'll have to check how many draft picks Tampa Bay has moving forward, but it's got to be not many. Um, Another big trade that happened on February 26th, New Jersey Devils acquired forward Timo Meyer and Timur Ibragimov and defenseman Scott Harrington and Santeri Taka. Goalie Zach Emond, and a fifth round pick in the 2024 NHL draft from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for forwards Fabian Zetterlund, Andreas Johnson, defenseman Shakir Mukadamo, Muka, Mukamadulin, that's it, Mukamadulin, and Nikita Okatiuk, and a conditional first round pick in the 23 draft, a conditional second round pick in the 2024 draft, and a seventh round pick in the 2024 draft. I really like this trade for New Jersey. They get a lot of stuff. Um, First and foremost is Timo Meyer. Whether they're going to be able to keep Timo Meyer, I mean, the Devils are okay with the cap, but Timo Meyer to be retained as a player next season will have to sign like a $10 million offer sheet. Um, so, it's an audition for the Devils for Timo Meyer, whether they want to splash that money out or try and re-sign him to a more reasonable contract in the offseason, or, let him walk in free agency. But they also got a lot of stuff with Ibragimov, Harrington, Hataka, a young goalie, and a pick. Like they got a ton of stuff out of San Jose. San Jose did get a decent return. Zetterland's okay. Johnson's okay. I think the big piece is that defenseman Doolin, um, who's been playing in Russia. The key is to get him over to the United States in the next year or two to continue his development. But that's going to be the big piece for the San Jose Sharks. And the good news for the Sharks is they get some salary cap relief. They haven't been able to move Eric Carlson yet, um, and I don't know that they're going to be able to. Again, Carlson's got years left on his contract at a massive cap hit. February 26th, the Colorado Avalanche acquired defenseman Jack Johnson from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for defenseman Andreas England. Not a bad move for Colorado or Chicago, getting some of that money off their books, and Colorado reuniting with Jack Johnson on that blue line to address some of the injury issues that they've had. Not mad about that trade. Vegas Golden Knights acquired forward Ivan Barbashev from the St. Louis Blues. I really love that pick. Barbashev is a sandpaper guy to play against, and I'm going to really like that for the Vegas Golden Knights. Going back to St. Louis was a forward named Zach Dean. So Vegas get a really good middle six guy in exchange for, I guess he's a prospect. I haven't heard of him before. So Dallas has been very quiet for a team that is very. I said this earlier. They've been very quiet for a team that's been on the cusp of leading the Western Conference and have been leading the Central Division most of the season. They apparently, before the show, it hasn't been confirmed by the NHL. In fact, let me check and see if it has been confirmed, and we'll talk about it. But they acquired Evgeny Dadonov from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Denis Gurianov. Um, I don't know that I like that trade at all. Dadonov has kind of worn out his welcome in a lot of places, um, or Dodonov. He's worn out his welcome in a lot of places. Gurianov has had flashes. I would much rather have. I think I would much rather have Gurianov than Dodonov. So, so I don't like that trade for Dallas. Let me see. There has been a rumor that Dallas did acquire Max Domi from the Chicago Blackhawks. That has not been confirmed on the NHL website yet, so it hasn't been called in yet. Um, that would be a good get for the Dallas Stars, as long as they didn't give up anything bad like this trade with Guryanov. Let's see. Oh, this is a good trade. On February 25th, Winnipeg Jets acquired forward Nino Niederreiter from the Nashville Predators in exchange for a second round pick in the 2024 draft. Now, the cool thing about the Jets for this one is that Niederreiter is locked in for another year after this trade. So they get some term with this. Second round pick is not a horrible return for Niederreiter for the Nashville Predators. So I think both teams get what they want out of this deal. Um, and it's a future pick, so 2024 for the Winnipeg Jets. Um, I don't think Winnipeg takes a massive step backwards next season, so it's probably not going to be a very high second round pick. Um, but yeah, a decent return for Nito Niederreiter. He's on a decent cap hit for a player that's had a pretty decent NHL career. Vancouver acquired forward Vitaly Kravtsov. This is kind of what started kicking off the Kane to New York rumors. Um, but yeah, Vitaly Kravtsov to the New York Rangers, or from the New York Rangers, in exchange for forwards William Lockwood, a seventh round pick in the 26th draft. So um, the Chris Drury acquires a pick, late pick, um, and a player for Vitaly Kravtsov, who just wasn't fitting in New York. So good to get something for him, and it cleared some space so that he could bring in Patrick Kane. The Colorado Avalanche acquired goaltender Keith Kincaid from the Boston Bruins in exchange for forward Shane Bowers. Kincaid, journeyman, has played some this season with when uh, the backup. His name is escaping me right now. Swayman was injured in Boston earlier this season, and has had a few runs in the NHL, primarily with New Jersey. I think a couple with Florida as well. But he goes from Boston to Colorado, and Colorado gets a depth backup. Now, I'm sure Colorado is kind of reliving the experience of a few years ago where they've got a couple of okay goaltenders going into the playoffs, and seeing both of them injured early on really cost them that run towards the finals when they were in the bubble. So they wanted to make sure that I'm sure they want to make sure they have goaltending depth in case the worst case scenario happens. Um, and this is the trade that kind of kicked off this wild week. From our show last week, this trade happened. I think as the show was going on, Boston Bruins acquired Dmitry Orlov and forward Garnet Hathaway from the Capitals in a three-team trade that included the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota has weaponized its very limited cap space this year. They've gotten a couple picks out of retaining, uh, 50% of the remaining salary for a couple of different players. We saw it last week in this trade. It happened, but the Bruins also acquired prospect Andrei Svetlikov from the Wild. The Capitals acquired a forward Craig Smith, a first round pick in the 2023 draft. Boston, it looks like a juggernaut, so this may be a late first round draft pick for the Capitals, but it's not a protected, not conditional. You got a 2023 draft pick. Um, at the very least, they're going to get something late 20s if things go completely sideways for the Bruins in the playoffs. They also get a third round pick in the 24 draft and a second round pick in the 25 draft. The Wild acquire a fifth round pick in the 2023 draft from the Bruins. So um, I really like this trade for the Bruins. It's not something that they really needed. Orloff is a good defenseman. Hathaway is a sandpaper guy. I mean, there are two things that I think of Boston. They've got good defense and they've got plenty of sandpaper. This team is built to compete in the playoffs, built to go to the Stanley Cup, hopefully win the Stanley Cup for the Boston Bruins. Well, not so much hopefully in my perspective because I hate the Boston Bruins, but great trade for the Boston Bruins. That one really sets them up for the stretch run. And that's it. Took me 45 minutes to go through like 36 trades that have happened in the last week. Um, and there are going to be more tomorrow. Reminder tomorrow on TikTok. Uh, we're going to have the NHL trade deadline 4 hours from noon to 4 p.m. where we're talking about the trades as they roll in. I'm going to be refreshing my Twitter feed. I've got a specific feed for NHL trade deadline um, to show. Yeah, a lot of people are reporting the Max Domi deal that he's been dealt, but I haven't seen any returns for it. Um, Interesting. All right, we'll keep an eye on that one. But yeah, it sounds like Max Domi is a Dallas Star at this point. Um, But yeah, so tomorrow, trade deadline on TikTok. Hi there, everybody on TikTok. Really appreciate you watching. If you're watching, give us a little like, thumbs up, wherever you're at. Um, but yeah, 12 to 4 tomorrow. We're talking about the NHL trade deadline. We'll talk about the end of the NHL season, go through all of that, talk about those trades that are being made and the ones that aren't made. Who stays where we think they were going to move? Who's going to be this year's Jacob Chikrin? Because Jacob Chikrin has been supposed to move for the last 2 years. So glad he's finally gone. Um, not happy that he's in Ottawa, but that's a different story. Um, but let's go to other little news that's happened. Well, not so little. We got some contract extensions. There are five key ones. I know there's a couple that have rolled in this afternoon too, but uh, Caps, I'm sorry, the Detroit Red Wings re-signed Dylan Larkin, 8 years, 8.7 years annual average annual value. So the 8.7 cap hit. Caps signed Nick Jensen, defenseman, for 3 years, a $4.05 million in cap hit. Detroit signs defenseman Jake Wallman for 3 years at 3.4 million cap hit. Big one today was uh, David Pastrnak going 8 years, $11.25 million cap hit. Um, he is the offensive straw that stirs the drink in Boston. So I don't think that there's a bad contract you could have signed David Pastrnak to, but they've got him for another 8 years at 11.25 million. Bruins going to hope that that salary cap keeps going up because that might be an issue as we get later in his career. And then Sammy Blay is signed by the Blues for a further year. He was a unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. He gets another year in St. Louis at $1 million cap hit. Decent deal for both sides. Um, it's actually a little bit less money than he's making this season, but kind of a show me deal for Sammy Blay, who had a tough run in New York. Has shown some decent signs now that he's back in St. Louis. I think he's comfortable there. So it might be a good value signing for the St. Louis Blues going forward. Um, and then finally, final news story. Shout out to Brianna Decker. Brianna Decker is one of the most decorated U.S. women's national hockey team players. She has won a gold medal, two silver medals. She's won 6 world championship gold medals. Um, just a cog in the machine that is the U.S. women's national team. She announced her retirement today, and at some point in the near future, she will probably be in the U.S. Hockey Hall or the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. Probably the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame as well, um, just for his contributions. Hell of a player, and probably one of the at her height, I think was probably one of the best players in the women's game. So let's go with our Sabres beat now. I don't know. I mean, for me, watching what's going on with the trade deadline as we get closer and closer to it, with the, well, I won't say there's a lack of moves, but there's nothing really significant. We moved a player that wasn't working out with the organization, one that we kind of got raked over the coals by Taylor Hall to get. Um, we moved a player that probably wasn't going to sign with us, which is not bad. We got a third round pick out of it. Um, and then we pick up I'm gonna say probably a seventh, maybe even eighth defenseman, um, in exchange for a pretty decent prospect. I mean, there's always a chance that Josh Bloom doesn't develop into anything significant. Um, and there's always a chance that Riley Stillman will slot right into the Sabre system and provide them the stability they need in the back end because Lord knows they need it. And provides them some of that sandpaper and grit that when a team tries to start pushing the Sabres around, that he's the guy that they send over the boards to correct some actions. But um, I know Kevin Adams has a plan. I know that he's had that rebuild plan of 3 years. So last year was year one, this is year two, and then next year is year three, where we're supposed to make that playoff jump, be that ultra competitive team in the Atlantic Division. I don't know. Uh, Sometimes you got to take a little bit of a chance, and I don't think you have to mortgage the farm. You don't have to pull a Tim, uh, uh, whatever his name was. Had to erase that from my memory. But the former Sabres general manager who just mortgaged the future, trying to accelerate the rebuild. Once he got Eichel, he's dealt off first round picks and draft capital in exchange to he brought in some decent pieces. Like I didn't hate the Evander Kane trade. Evander Kane's a decent player. He's just got some character issues. He brought in Ryan O'Reilly, good player, great player, captain a team to the Stanley Cup. But mortgaging the future when you had a rebuild already underway, I think was dumb. You don't have to do that here. First off, you got a ton of prospects, at least a team's worth of prospects in the system. Whether you're talking about the Russian players that have not come over yet, um, guys like Isaac Roseanne and Matt Savoy. Um, these guys we've got plenty of prospects right now. We could deal off a draft pick. We even deal off a prospect at this point and be okay. Kulik, I wouldn't deal off Kulik or um, Roseanne at this point, but you could deal off a draft pick at this point, or a prospect, and not ruin the future because you've got so much in the system right now. Um, to address a serious need, whether it's a face-off center or more grit on the blue line or maybe even a goaltender. Um, I have been kind of disappointed in. Yeah, we're making moves, but really it's just kind of a little bit here and a little bit there. It's nothing significant that I think the Sabres need right now because now every team that's around them that's ahead of them especially, have significantly improved. Ottawa's significantly improved themselves, um, and I think at least psychologically, bringing in a player tells the team that that management is okay with what's going on and wants to see a player or wants to see playoffs. And I think it's much more psychological in that, hey, make a move for a player and see where it goes. Again, we've got time before the trade deadline's over. So maybe there is something in the works. Maybe they pluck a guy like James Van Riemsdyk off of the Flyers. Maybe they pick off, um, Brock Besser out of Vancouver. We'll see. But yeah, it's kind of concerning watching all the other teams around you get better, and some of these players have terms. So it's we're still going to be in that same position when we get to next season. Yes, our players have another year experience, but we're playing against teams that are already stacked for the playoffs. So um, I know a lot of people have been making a lot of things about what's going on with the trade deadline. Eastern Conference teams just loading up, um, and a lot of team people are kind of riding off the Western Conference right now. Edmonton's made some moves, Vegas has made some moves, LA's made some moves, but for the most part, it's players going from the West Side to the East Side to make those teams better. I wouldn't sleep entirely on the Western Conference. I mentioned this last week. Um, the Western Conference, we could see, or we could see the Eastern playoffs be just this battle royale that whatever team is going to emerge from that fight is going to be damaged. Whether they have enough in the tank and players in the back to fill some of those gaps is going to be a big thing. So, let's say a team like Edmonton makes it through to the finals, maybe not have had as rough a run as, say, a Tampa, a Boston, or New York. um, and could take advantage of that. So it's not all bad for the Western Conference, even though they've been much quieter. I do anticipate us seeing moves from teams that we really haven't heard a whole lot from so far. There are two teams that I'm shocked have not made more moves, and that is Montreal, dealing off some of their players ahead of the deadline, and the Anaheim Ducks. They've got some players, probably Vetrano, Klingberg, um, uh, guys like that that they could use to bolster some team's lineup. Haven't made those moves yet. So anyway, great talking to everybody tonight. Appreciate you showing up. If you can show us a little like on the TikTok, on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on the Twitch, and all that fun stuff. Again, tomorrow, please join us noon Eastern time, all the way to 4 o'clock, as we catch some of those late reporting trades that go right up to the 3 p.m. deadline. And uh, we'll be exclusively on TikTok. Um, with that, so I can interface with folks on TikTok a lot easier tomorrow and just managing one platform. But join us tomorrow as we talk about the trades, the season as it's about to wind down, and what the playoffs look like in both conferences. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we will talk to everyone next week. Or I'm sorry, tomorrow. So have a good one.